The global carbon market has become one of the most aggressively pursued sectors in modern finance. Everyone wants a piece of it, but very few people actually understand what they're buying. This split-screen visualization illustrates the massive divide in the space. On one side, you have a highly regulated compliance market, trading roughly $1.5 trillion a year. On the other, a completely separate voluntary market, worth just $2.5 billion. The core dilemma is that financial media uses the term carbon credits as a catch-all phrase for both of these entirely different ecosystems. Treating these two systems as a single entity is dangerous. It leads retail investors to misallocate their capital, and it walks corporations straight into severe greenwashing PR disasters. To navigate this space safely, we have to look at the three distinct players involved: the retail investor trying to capture stock gains, the corporate strategist managing legal compliance, and the eco-consumer looking to neutralize their personal lifestyle footprint. We are going to separate the exact mechanics of regulatory credits from voluntary offsets and map which specific vehicle actually aligns with your goals. Before you spend a single dollar in this sector, you must define your primary objective. You are either optimizing for a financial ROI or an impact ROI. Let's start with carbon credits. Strictly speaking, these are the instruments of the mandatory compliance market. They operate under a cap-and-trade system. Governments set a hard limit on annual emissions and issue a restricted number of permission slips allowing companies to emit a specific amount of CO2. You see this regulatory environment in action through the European Union's emissions trading system or California's state-level cap-and-invest program. Looking at this comparison matrix, you can see how the compliance side creates a vertical flow of capital. Regulators issue allowances to corporations, and companies that emit less than their legal cap can sell their surplus to heavier emitters. For corporations, this market is strictly an operational expense. If you are an individual retail buyer, this compliance market is entirely inaccessible to you. That brings us to the other side of the matrix, carbon offsets, which are the instruments of the voluntary market. Offsets are horizontal trades. This is a company or an individual voluntarily paying another private entity that is actively removing carbon from the atmosphere. The major flaw here is quality control. Because participation is optional, the market is plagued by low-quality projects. Proving the carbon was actually removed requires rigorous third-party verification standards, like the ICVCM. A credit is a legal license to pollute less over time. An offset is an optional philanthropic purchase to clean up your existing historical footprint. So exactly how does the retail investor extract a financial ROI from the transition to a low-carbon economy? Since retail investors cannot purchase physical compliance credits, they have to utilize traditional equities to gain market exposure. The most direct route is through pure-play carbon tech stops. Companies like Acre Carbon Capture or Occidental Petroleum, which deal in scalable industrial emissions reduction and carbon recycling. This quadrant chart plots the primary trade-off. Single pure-play stocks offer high direct exposure to carbon technology, but they sit high on the risk axis. They carry extreme volatility and rely heavily on future government subsidies to stay profitable. Lower down on the risk axis, you find broad clean energy ETFs, like iShares Global Clean Energy or the Invesco Solar ETF. These ETFs provide immediate diversification across wind, solar, and battery technology. However, these massive physical assets, like commercial solar and wind installations, are the very infrastructure projects generating the offsets that the broader market relies upon. For the retail investor, pursuing financial ROI means betting on the companies building the low-carbon transition. You aren't trading actual carbon molecules. Now we turn to the corporate strategist and the eco-consumer. For these players, the primary objective is impact and public relations ROI. The fastest way to destroy that ROI is by purchasing the cheapest available offsets. Buying unverified, low-quality projects inevitably leads to public accusations of corporate greenwashing. To secure high-quality impact, buyers are turning to heavily verified projects, particularly an emerging asset class known as blue carbon. Blue carbon ecosystems are marine forests, tidal marshes, seagrass beds, and mangroves. These specialized environments act as incredibly intensive carbon sinks. Pound for pound, these marine ecosystems can store up to 4 times more carbon than traditional terrestrial forests, while simultaneously protecting local marine biodiversity. The financial trade-off is straightforward. Because of these massive secondary benefits, premium blue carbon offsets trade at a much higher cost per ton. They require a significantly larger capital outlay. Despite that cost, massive Fortune 500 companies, like Microsoft, are actively purchasing high-quality carbon removal credits to legitimately meet their net zero pledges by 2030. In a voluntary market, you get exactly what you pay for. Investing in premium, verified offsets is the only reliable way to protect the environment and your corporate reputation at the same time. This 3-column matrix brings all these mechanisms together, mapping your specific profile directly to your correct market instrument. If you are the retail investor, your action is allocating capital for long-term thematic growth, using broad carbon ETFs and pure-play clean tech stocks. Your primary trap is the misconception that you're directly buying physical carbon credits. You aren't. You hold traditional equities. If you are the corporate operator, your action is meeting legal mandates and earning public goodwill. You achieve this through a calculated blend of compliance allowances and verified voluntary offsets. Your trap is saving money on cheap, unverified offsets, which will trigger severe PR blowback. Finally, if you are the eco-consumer, your action is neutralizing your personal lifestyle footprint. You use footprint calculators and purchase directly from third-party offset vendors. Your trap is expecting any sort of financial return. This is strictly an ethical, sunk-cost philanthropic expenditure. The carbon market is no longer a single unified monolith. Whether you are chasing financial returns or reputational success, you have to know exactly which of these 3 games you are playing before you step onto the field.